Ever wonder what motivates people to get plastic surgery? Did they regret it? What can we learn from the stories of plastic surgery patients? I'm Dr. Sajan, and this is the Plastic Surgeon Podcast. Hello, my friends. Welcome back, and thanks to all our listeners for the amazing feedback we have had so far. We've had so much fun, and we look forward to more of your insights and suggestions. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcast to help us get you more amazing content on Plastic Surgeon Podcast. We listen to real plastic surgery stories of triumph and pain from real patients and providers to further understand why they would risk their life under the knife. I'm Dr. Sajan, and today my patient is the amazing, wonderful, fabulous Myriah. Hi, Myriah. We are here to talk to you about your journey, how we came to know each other, the procedure you underwent, and how it affected you. So, Myriah, let's start by you please telling us, what surgery did I have the privilege to perform for you?
I did lipo 360 and a Brazilian butt lift.
Okay. Myriah, can you explain what that is a little bit?
So basically how I explain this to my viewers is we took out fat from unwanted areas and put them into desirable areas.
And what areas did you want fat put into?
My hips and my butt.
Why did you want that?
Being trans and trying to feel comfortable in my body, one of the biggest things that I was uncomfortable with or I was self-conscious about was my body shape and trying to have like a feminine figure. I would wear clothes and like try to do things to like make it appear like I wanted it to be in my head, but I could never quite achieve what I wanted or the feeling that I was trying to achieve. So I started looking into a BBL and then liposuction, and I came across you and seen some of the work you had done and the shape you had been able to give to other trans women, and I wanted that so desperately.
What motivated you, or what told you inside that you wanted this change in your body?
So ever since I was very young, like some of my earliest memories, I remember feeling out of place in my body. And as like a child, it's very confusing. Like you don't understand like what those feelings are.
How old were you?
I would say 5, 6 years old.
At that young age?
Feeling awkward in my body, but not understanding like what that awkwardness was or why. I just have never felt like at home in my physical being versus like who I am internally as a person.
Did you know trans was a thing at 5 years of age?
Absolutely not.
But you didn't feel you felt uncomfortable in your body, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you give me an example of what that discomfort was?
Just like in my head, like I was a girl like the whole time, but obviously I was like a boy, and everybody was like pushing me to do like boy things. And from a very young age, I like started using defense mechanisms to try to like suppress that and hide that, because what people were telling me wasn't what I was feeling, or it wasn't matching like who I felt I was. And I never once opened up to anybody about it. I never talked to my mother about it. Nothing. It was just something that from that very early age, I started trying to like suppress and like not let it like, I don't know. It was just like a self-defense mechanism.
What kind of quote unquote girl things did you want to do that you felt weren't appropriate for the way people were expecting you to be?
Well, there was times where like I got a sewing machine and I would like create little doll clothes and stuff. And that was never like an issue, but like even just like wanting to like play with Barbies, but knowing like that's for girls and I'm not a girl. So I never got to express or like experience those things, except for like within my head, like that desire to want to do that, but terrified to actually do it.
Why were you terrified?
Just worried about what other people were going to think about me. And like,
Had someone made comments to you when you were trying to do things that quote unquote weren't gender appropriate at your age?
no, I don't think there was any like specific examples where like something happened that caused me to like put up these defense mechanisms and try to like hide how I felt. It was just like a natural instinct to like try to go along with what everybody else said that a boy is supposed to do or what a boy is supposed to like. And
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lacey, Washington.
Did you have siblings?
I have an older brother and a single mother. My mom was a single mother my entire life.
And do you feel your mom was encouraging you to do more boy things or just everywhere overall?
I think everywhere overall. My mom was just being a mom and working all the time and like just doing her best to like get by.
What kind of work did she do?
So early on, we were in low income housing. She was struggling to find work and to support me and my brother. Eventually, she got into like restaurant management. She worked at golf courses and did restaurant management at golf courses. And now she works at a bakery. She's been at for like 20 years. She's the manager at this bakery.
Is she still in the same area?
Yeah.
And was your dad involved at all in your early life?
My dad left my mom before I was born. So I have an older brother that's 4 years old. We have the same dad. And when my mom got pregnant with me, there was also another woman that got pregnant by my dad right around the same time. I have a half brother that I think he's like 3 months older, 3 months younger than me. And so he ended up leaving my mom and being with this woman and having a family with her. And I've never met my dad once my entire life.
What did your mom tell you about all that? When you were young, how did she explain it?
I don't remember asking her about. It was just like I just didn't have a dad.
So when you went to school and you saw other people's dad, did you think about where yours was, or it just didn't come up?
Yeah, there was definitely times where like I wondered about it and I would ask about it, and my mom would just like tell me that he wasn't a good person or this and that. But I don't know, it was never really like that big of a deal. I did have a stepfather growing up. My mom did get married. I had a couple step siblings.
How was your relationship with your stepdad?
This guy was kind of an asshole, to be honest with you.
Really? In what way?
Yeah, he was very like harsh and like he was a very like manly, like straight to the point. Like you do anything wrong, you're grounded. Like just not a very friendly person, I guess.
Why did your mom love him?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know why she loved him.
Why was she with him?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. That like they had a rough relationship. There was times he had cheated on my mom and my mom would catch him and she would like lose it. And there was a couple times where I was there when this happened.
How would she lose it?
Just start like yelling at him and there would be like verbal fighting and stuff like that. I remember one time on Christmas, somebody that he had been seeing behind my mom's back was like calling and leaving messages. Like we were out having Christmas dinner and came home to all these like crazy messages. And it was a really rocky situation.
Did you ever learn why he was doing that, or not sure?
Not sure. He was just a very grumpy person.
How long was your mom with him? Or is she still with him now?
They were together. I was probably like 10 years old when they got together. 8 to 10 years old, and they stayed together for off and on. It probably went on for like 8 years.
Was he supporting her at all?
Um, there was one time we moved into his house and we lived in his house, and then there was another time where he moved into my mom's house. So it was kind of like back and forth. I think they were mostly like 50-50 on things.
How did it feel being a child and seeing your mom treated this way?
Horrible. It felt horrible.
What did you want to do about it?
I always just wanted my mom to leave. Like, I couldn't understand why she stayed. There would be so many times she was just like, I remember her just like crying in her bed and me just like going to try to like console my mom, you know, going through just like crazy things. And seeing this stuff like as a child, like this is something you try to like learn from and like never want to experience. And somehow, don't ask me how, I ended up in the same situation she was in as I was growing up.
When did that happen to you?
With my children's mother. We had a very rocky relationship. She had some substance abuse issues, and there was a lot of that same fighting and crying happening. And
when did you meet her?
I met her, I was like 21. I moved to Alaska.
And were you trans then, or were you presenting?
I was not presenting. I always say I've always been trans, but up until I was 36 years old, I didn't tell anybody. Now, the women that I dated, they always ended up finding out. The majority of them ended up like finding clothes or just like learning who I was and like seeing that that's who I was. And my children's mother, she found out early on, very early on, and she like, we broke up for a little bit because of it, but then we got back together and we ended up having 2 children, and she knew about it the whole time. On weekends when we didn't have the kids, I would like dress up with her and we'd like do my makeup and do my hair and stuff, but it was always like a secret, like behind closed doors type of thing. And she never thought I would actually like transition.
When did you?
I never thought I would, to be honest.
When you were 5 or 6, you didn't tell anyone. When did you?
I never told anyone. I was so terrified.
When did you start telling anyone that you had feelings that weren't congruent with your gender assigned at birth?
The first time I like openly admitted it, I would say would be with my children's mother. Probably a couple years into our relationship. We were together a total of like 8 years.
How old were you?
I was probably mid-20s.
And before that, had you done anything to present more as a female gender?
I would do things that like people wouldn't be able to know, like shave my body hair.
What age were you when you did that?
The first time I shaved all my body hair, probably I was a teenager, maybe like 17, 18.
Did you have any relationships with people who weren't female around that time?
So I've always considered myself to be bi. I'm attracted to men and women. I only ever had dated women, but maybe when I was probably like 19, 20, it would be like the first time that I was with a man.
How did that happen?
Like growing up, and like kids are like bullies, and like if there was like feminine presenting guys, or the gay kids at school would be like tormented, and like I just like, I'm very good at like observing people, and I would observe all these things and like be like, okay, I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want people to look at me this way. So that just like, I don't know, it further like, it just made me feel ashamed that I had those feelings and that's who I was.
Did you enjoy being with a man more than a woman?
You know, up until like I started transitioning, I was convinced that I like men and women equally. And I had been with women like presenting as a woman and cross-dressing. And And that was okay. I don't know. But most of the time I was with women, I was presenting like as a man and trying to be like what the world thought I should be, being born as a boy or whatever. But now that I've like, I don't know, ever since like transitioning like full time and starting hormone replacement therapy and stuff, like being with a woman just isn't the same anymore. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I just don't have that desire to be with women. I'm attracted to women. I think women are gorgeous, but once it comes down to like being with a woman, it just feels different now.
When did you meet your kid's mom?
I was like 21, 22.
What were you doing at that point in your life?
So I had gotten into some drugs and was doing bad things. The time I was like 18, got out of high school, I started doing drugs, being up to no good. And
if you can, like, what do you mean by no good? If you can tell us. If you can, it's okay.
Just like abusing drugs, like whatever I could get my hands on. Eventually I got hooked onto meth. And I was hooked on meth for 1.5 years to 2 years.
Where did you first get drugs from?
A coworker.
What kind of job were you at?
Fast food, Skippers.
That coworker had some meth he or she gave you.
It started more with like energy pills. Back then we had these things called yellow jackets and they had ephedrine in them. And it was like legal meth basically. And we'd take those and like stay up all night. We'd smoking weed and like huffing things and like just doing whatever we could get our hands on as teenagers, drinking cough syrup. And
why did you want to get high? What was good about it?
I think it was just an escape from all these. At the time, I didn't think of it this way, but looking back, I think it was an escape of trying to get away from these feelings I had and this like resentment I had towards myself and these feelings of being ashamed of who I was and not understanding a lot of it. Like at that age, I was still so confused about like why I felt this way, why this was happening to me, and why did I feel so good to dress up as a woman. And so I just like went down the wrong path and started doing these drugs, and it led to meth. And then I was doing meth daily for...
How did you get your hands on meth?
So I was living with my cousin, and her neighbor, she sold it. And so it was like right across the little driveway.
How were you getting the money to do drugs?
I was working like fast food jobs and stuff, not earning a lot of money, obviously. My mom was helping me pay my rent. It was like $400 a month. And so I was just scraping by. One thing I am proud of myself for never doing was I never got so deep that I like stole or like did criminal activities to acquire drugs. I ended up becoming friends with the neighbor, and she always had this stuff, and so I was kind of just there all day with them, and like a lot of times getting it for free from them.
And then that led to you meeting. Now, did your children's mother? Did she become your wife, or were you?
No, I never married her.
Okay, how did you end up meeting her?
I got to the point where I was like, this is really bad, and I got to get my life together. I was like 21 years old. My uncle lived in Alaska. He had been up there for 20 years. And there was this big gold mine opening. And he told me to come to Alaska and try to get a job at the gold mine. So I packed my bags. I took one suitcase. Never been on an airplane in my life. Never left the state of Washington. Jumped on a plane. Flew to Alaska to the middle of nowhere.
Wow. Did something push you to make that trip? Did you reach a real big low point? Or you were just tired? You wanted something new?
I was just tired. Doing drugs like that every day, like I wanted to have a life. I wanted to have a family, and like.
So you went cold turkey and jumped on a plane.
Went cold turkey and jumped on a plane. Yeah.
Oh my! How was it?
It was kind of tough, but I was in a town of 3,000 people. The only way in was an airplane. You can't drive to this place. You can't take a boat here. Like it's basically in the Arctic Circle, like middle of nowhere.
Cold?
Freezing cold. The ocean freezes solid.
Wow.
And so I got a job like cleaning airplanes there in the little town.
Mm-hmm.
Just like little 10-seater airplanes that flew around to the villages.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up a couple months in getting a job at the gold mine, which is where I met my kid's mom.
Okay, she was working there too?
Yeah.
She was an Alaskan?
She's an Alaska native.
Oh, okay.
Eskimo. I got a little Eskimo baby.
Oh, that's cool. How long were you together?
We were together, all together, like 8 years.
Were you all doing drugs together? Or did you get back into
No.
it? No.
Her drug of choice was alcohol.
Okay.
And when I moved to Alaska, I had flown back to Washington a couple times and relapsed. But once I got with my kid's mom and we were dating, I never touched meth again after that.
Did you love her?
Yes. I was like, I don't know. The second I saw her, I was like, I'm going to marry that girl.
Why?
I don't know. She was just like so beautiful and just had like this aura about her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she had this aura about her. And so, I don't know. We just like ended up working together. I seen her in town before we like started working together. And then we started working together. And obviously I was like trying to talk to her and stuff.
Did you ask her out on a first date or how did that happen?
I don't remember exactly how it happened. We didn't have like, this town was small. You don't go on dates.
Mm-hmm.
You just hang out.
Yeah, yeah.
I was living in a little like shed outside my uncle's house that we turned into my bedroom.
Uh-huh.
It's like a garden shed, basically.
You had heat in that shed?
Yeah, we put heat out there and electricity and stuff. I had a little TV. And we would just start like hanging out after work.
That's cool. And then did you plan to have kids or how did that happen?
We didn't really plan it. We were together for a few months. And she found some of my like old emails of me like hooking up with guys.
Okay.
And like freaked out. And we broke up for a while.
And was she pregnant then?
So she did end up getting pregnant, but she got an abortion. She had also cheated on me around this same time. So she ended up pregnant. She got an abortion. Mm-hmm. She swore on everything that it was mine. And
did she get the abortion before she saw the emails or after?
After.
So did she cheat on you after she saw the emails?
I can't remember it was like really close around.
Okay.
Everything just kind of like fell apart like pretty fast.
Okay. And then she got an abortion, but then she cheated on you. You all got back together?
We got back together.
You forgave her?
A couple months later. So when I met her, she had a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was 2 years old, and I absolutely fell in love with this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day, like I'm her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like I wanted so bad to like be in that little girl's life. And me and her mother, my kid's mom, we reconciled our differences and started like talking again. And
did you have memories of your mom going through all that trauma when this happened to you?
Talking about it with you now, like I think about it and it's like a carbon copy of what my mom went through. Maybe not exact situations, but the same like overall like situation between us, going like being together and then separated and then getting back together. Like I guess I was doing a lot of what I saw my mom do growing up.
Did you ask her why she cheated on you?
No, she cheated on me with someone we worked with. And she was a drinker. She liked to go out. I didn't like to drink. So I took her to the bar one night and let her go like have fun, you know? And then I went to go pick her up and she like snuck out the back door with this guy.
Did you see her sneak out?
I saw her in the bar and then she was just like gone. And I'm like, she knew I was sitting outside of the bar to pick her up. So the bar was closing. She was just like gone.
What did you do? Were you looking for her?
Yeah, like all night I'm just like driving around trying to get a hold of her. Like, what in the heck is going on? And then she came home like the next day. And I remember like her bra strap was all like put on like if you were drunk and like tried to put a bra on. It was all messed up. I don't remember exactly how it was. But I just knew something was wrong.
Did she admit to you right away?
Yeah, it was pretty obvious.
Did you all have a fight?
We had verbal argument at that point.
Then you split up for a bit. Then you got back together.
Got back together. She ended up pregnant with my daughter.
Did you plan that?
No, we didn't plan that one. She just ended up pregnant. And things went okay when she was pregnant. She wasn't drinking, and like I was so excited to like have a baby of my own, you know. We had her daughter that she had, and I loved and cherished her so much, but I was just so excited like to have a human being that I created, you know. And it was great. And then we got laid off from the mine.
Why is that?
After 2 years, they ran out of funding. 07, 08 when the economy crashed.
Oh.
They had gotten this $200 million mine up and running, and it wasn't designed properly for like the Arctic and like being outdoors and minus 40 temperatures and stuff. And so they couldn't get any more funding and shut it down. They told us the day before Thanksgiving we were all losing our jobs. My kid's mom was pregnant at this time, probably like 6 months pregnant.
With your second child or is the first?
My first.
Okay.
And so we were out of a job. We moved to Washington. We moved down here to Washington.
Why did you come back here?
No work. I don't know. I just feel like it's better to raise a child down here than up there in the middle of nowhere where there's not a lot of opportunity.
Had she been here before, or she came with you?
She had visited.
Okay. And she liked it?
And she liked it, yeah.
Were you all staying with your mom, or you got your own place?
Yeah, we stayed with my mom while she was pregnant.
And the baby came?
The baby came, was born here. Same hospital I was born in. My daughter, Ryan. And then...
You got a job?
And then they had to do environmental stuff to keep like the mine like environment, like they had regulations they had to uphold or abide by to like keep stuff from getting out into the environment. So they offered her a job to come up there and like do these things and do water testing and all this stuff. So we ended up moving back to Alaska. My daughter was like 9 months old at this point. And we moved back, and it was a lot of drinking, a lot of fighting, holes being punched in doors.
Who was punching the holes?
My children's mother.
She was the one drinking?
Yes.
Not you?
Excessively.
Every day?
Sometimes every day.
4 or 5 drinks?
Fifths of alcohol. Extreme amounts. Fighting with like I remember one time looking out the kitchen window. My daughter's just a baby, and her mom's over there fighting some girl on the porch, like crazy stuff. There was one time it got really bad, and I tried to leave with my daughter. She was 6 months old.
What happened?
I took my daughter, and I was trying to walk out the house, and she attacked me, and she started hitting me repeatedly in the head while I'm holding my 6-month-old baby.
When you say things got
really bad.
What got bad?
The drinking, the fighting. That was the moment I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. Like, I got to rescue my daughter. I got to put her in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And I ended up setting up a trip home to go visit my mom with my daughter. She was working, so she was going to stay here. And I took as much as I could get in a suitcase and make it not look like I wasn't coming back. But in my head, I knew I wasn't coming back. So me and my daughter came down here, and I filed for custody of my daughter.
Did she fight it?
She came down here begging me to take her back.
Had she cheated on you again since then?
I don't know for a fact, but there was many like messages I had seen and like pictures that had been sent, and I'm assuming she probably had cheated on me.
You saw pictures of her with other people, other guys?
I know her sending pictures of herself to guys and stuff.
Do you ever ask her about these pictures?
Yeah, we'd have fights about it.
And what would she say?
Try to deny it. Try to act like it wasn't what it was.
Did you ever see or hear anything else?
No, I never like caught her in the act or anything like that, no.
Then you escaped to Washington. You came back to your mom's place?
Came back to my mom's, filed for custody.
You got a lawyer and stuff?
Got a lawyer.
How are you paying for all this?
My mom helped me. I put it on credit cards. Paid $20,000.
Did you have a job?
No, at that time I was unemployed. I was on unemployment for like a year and a half after we got laid off from the gold mine.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of that time just raising my daughter and taking care of my daughter. Her mom was working when we were in Alaska, so I was like a stay-at-home dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved back down here, she came running back, begging for me to take her. No, so I didn't pay $20,000 that first time. That first time, I got her to sign over custody of my daughter. For me to give her a chance, she had to sign over custody of my daughter. She did it. She went into my lawyers and signed over custody of her daughter to me. I had full 100% rights.
And then you took her
everything.
back.
We got back together.
You had another child?
She got pregnant again 4 years after my daughter was born and had my son.
Were you all in Washington, or did you end up going back to Alaska?
Never went back to Alaska after that.
What kind of work
in Washington.
Mm-hmm. What kind of work was she doing here?
So at first, when we like got back together after she signed away custody, she was still working in Alaska, and she would like go out there, work for 2 weeks, fly down here for a week, and was just like this back and forth. Eventually, she lost that job in Alaska and moved down here, and that's when I started going to work when my son was 6 months old.
Mm-hmm. What kind of work did you do?
I worked in a warehouse, Trader Joe's warehouse, loading trucks.
Yeah. Was
a
she at
little
home?
electric pallet jack.
Was she at home with the kids when you were working?
She was.
How was she doing better in Washington than Alaska? Same old?
I remember coming home one night. I was working like the 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift. I came home one night. My son was 6 months old. She was passed out naked on the floor, puke everywhere. My son all alone. Horrible, horrible, horrible scene to come home to. One night she broke a picture and was like bleeding everywhere. Like it was just the same cycle with her. She would stop drinking for a while. She would promise to be better, promise that things to change, and then it would just start again. It's a cycle she's battled her whole life.
How did that relationship end?
So I ended up buying a house. I started working. I moved from the warehouse to where I worked for the last 10 years in a mattress factory, and I bought us a house and hoped that us having our own house and our own space would make or give her the motivation to stop drinking and like try to raise this family we had created. And it never got any better. It just got worse and worse and worse. She would go out to the casinos, come home completely blacked out drunk, waking me up, hitting me and yelling at me and fighting. My daughter would wake up and come like out crying, seeing all this. Like it got to the point I never wanted to leave my kids' mom because I always felt so guilty for my kids. I just wanted my kids to like have both their parents. But it got to the point where it was doing more, I felt it was doing more harm than good staying with her. So at this point, I didn't know how to get out of this relationship. So I started talking to this girl I worked with. And I started seeing this girl behind her back for like 6 months until she found out.
How'd she find out?
She took my phone and saw messages.
Mm-hmm.
She showed up at my work with my son. He was 2 years old. He was in the back of the car. He was trying to fight this girl at my work with my son there. So I believe it was the next day I went and filed emergency custody and a protection order. And we went to court. The judge heard both of our stories. I told her we got court tomorrow.
Were you living together still?
Yeah, in the house that I had purchased for us.
Yeah.
And I told her that day, I was like, we have court at this time. My mom is going to pick the girls up because they were at school. She went and pulled the girls out of school and brought them to the courthouse. I pull up and my daughter Ryan was there in the car, and also her sister, who I don't have like legal rights to.
Yeah.
Because she had her prior.
Yeah, of course.
But I had custody papers and full custody of my other daughter. So I grabbed her and ran down to the gas station and dropped her off to my mom to try to get her out of this situation that these kids shouldn't have to witness.
Yeah.
And she brought our other daughter into the courtroom to witness this emergency court hearing. So we told our stories, and I told the judge that she showed up with my son and was trying to start a physical altercation. And as soon as the judge heard that, he was like, no, you get temporary custody. The house is yours. She's got to find somewhere else to go. And that started a very long, stressful
Where was your son during
custody
this?
battle. My son was young and wasn't in school at the time, so he was with my grandma.
And it was she got a lawyer, you got a lawyer, you all were fighting it?
Yeah. She got a lawyer, I got a lawyer. I got the emergency custody.
How did she afford the lawyer?
I don't know how she paid for her lawyer. I put most of mine on credit cards, paid some cash, and then my mom helped me pay. I paid like over $20,000 at that time for my lawyer.
How did it all end?
So we went to court. She tried to file a motion to take our kids to Alaska after they had been here for years and years and years, and this was all they knew. She tried to take them. Going to court that day, that was probably the scariest day of my life, like not knowing if my kids were going to jump on a plane and go away after me being like their sole care provider for however long it had been that we were together, but she just wasn't being a parent. And so we went to court. It went on for 6 months. She was taking UAs for alcohol. She told the court that I smoke weed every day, and so I was taking UAs. We were both taking UAs, and I passed all my UAs. She failed like 2 or 3 UAs, and then she got a DUI and rolled her car on the freeway. And then she just disappeared to Alaska and stopped going to court. So the judge eventually just signed over custody to me, and I got full custody of my kids.
When did you start thinking about transitioning during all this?
Once I had kids, I never thought I would be able to transition. I was more worried about making sure my kids were okay than trying to make sure I was okay. So at the point that I had kids, I had no hope of transitioning.
How did it come about?
I was a single parent for a long time. Most of these relationships I got into were ways to try to like keep myself from being who I was, trying to convince myself that the way I felt inside wasn't like who I really was, and I was just trying to live like the typical male experience and what society thought I should do. And I was pretty good at it. Like nobody had any idea the way I felt inside. But I got to a point where I was like really desperate to try to like deny myself of who I am. And I married a girl I knew for 2 weeks in Vegas. She was an adult dancer, a stripper. I met her on Facebook. And then it came crashing down really fast. I bought her a $20,000 ring. It all just fell apart. And I got really depressed.
How did it crash?
Being in that line of industry she was in, like crazy things would happen to her at work all the time. And one night she said she got drugged and someone tried to kidnap her. And like everything just like changed. Like our whole relationship. It was such a young relationship. I never should have got married, but it just went crashing down after that. She was mentally not there and just completely fell apart. And I got extremely depressed.
How long were you together?
Altogether, like 3 months.
Was she cheating?
Between meeting and breaking up.
And you spent
Got married in between.
You spent $20,000 on a ring and all this?
I bought a $20,000 ring. She told me she was going to give it back if I signed the divorce papers. I signed them. She's like, I don't have to give the ring back. That was that. And I became very depressed at that point. Like, I'd lost hope in, like, living this, like, dream of, like, being a man with a wife and, like, having my kids. And, like, I don't know. It was my last ditch chance to try to live, like, the life society thought I should live or expected me to live. And I got very depressed and I didn't want to live anymore.
How were your kids?
I was ready to give up 100%.
Were you were suicidal?
Absolutely.
How did you come out of that?
My kids kept me from ever getting to the point of, like, following through with, like, the thoughts I had in my head, not wanting to be here and just wanting to end it all. I could never do it knowing, like, my kids depend on me so much and they have nobody. If I'm not here, then who do my kids truly have? Like, I have my mom and stuff, but my mom's older, and, like, my kids saved me from committing the act and then getting out of depression immediately. Like, when I got to this point where I, like, was ready to just end it, I went online and I started researching how to get hormone replacement therapy. And I found a company by the name of Folks, and I was able to do it all online. And I had, like, a little consultation with somebody and, like, filled out the paperwork.
Do you have therapy before this?
No, nothing. I just knew that that's what I needed to feel whole and, like, feel life again, and, like, the desire to live and be at peace with myself. So in, like, these darkest moments, I found the courage to just accept who I was and begin to love who I was and not be so worried about what the world thought of me. So I ordered my HRT meds, and the first moment I injected estrogen into my body, my whole life changed.
How did it change?
I felt whole. I felt okay with who I was. I felt hopeful for the future. I felt excited for the future. Like, all these feelings that I never, like, knew, like, came out. It was so beautiful. I was still so scared, but like, inside I knew I was okay at that point.
How did you explain this to your kids?
So I started HRT. I was on HRT for 9 months before I came out to anybody. Changes started happening. I started getting laser hair removal, and, like, my beard, like, disappeared. And I was doing all these things, but nobody was, like, seeing what I was doing. And I was still terrified of what the world would think of me, what my friends and family would think of me, what my coworkers would think of me. So I had an opportunity to leave the state and transfer to Arizona. So, like, 6 months in, I packed up me and my kids. I sold my house and I moved to Arizona, knowing, like, I had to come out. Like, I had to do it. I couldn't put it off for very much longer. Like, it was getting too obvious. And I was scared to come out around the people that know me.
So you came out.
My kids moved to Arizona.
You came out there.
I came out in Arizona.
What did you tell your kids?
I came out to several other people before my kids. My kids, I was the most terrified to come out to. I was so worried I was gonna, like, turn their life upside down, and, like, I was so worried about the negative effects it could have on them. My daughter was 15. We went shopping one day, and then when we were done shopping and we got in the car, I said, "There's something I got to tell you." And her and my mom both thought I was going to, like, come out as being gay. And I just told her how I felt. I just told her about my hormone replacement therapy and how I feel inside, and her immediate reaction was just, "I love you, Dad." That's all she wanted me to know. She didn't care about any of it. She just wanted me to know that she loved me.
It's amazing.
It was beautiful.
How did your son take the news?
My son was 9 at the time. So So my daughter was 13, 14 when I told her. My son was 8 or 9. I didn't know how to tell him. He was so young. I had no idea how to tell him. So I found this book on Amazon. It's called She's My Dad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a children's like themed book.
Mm-hmm.
And I ordered it and I read it and it was perfect. So one day me and my son sat down in my room and we read this book together. And same as my daughter, he told me he just wanted me to know that he loved me. All my kids, that's all their response was to tell me and make sure that I knew that they loved me no matter what.
You're so blessed with such amazing kids.
It was so amazing. They were so supportive and encouraging and like fighting over who got to see me in makeup first or see like my outfits or my clothes. Like my daughter was helping me every way she could. She helped me pick out my first like real wig and they were absolutely amazing. I couldn't ask for anything better.
How has life been since you've transitioned?
It's been crazy. It's been very fulfilling and challenging. There's definitely been challenges. There's nothing easy about being a trans person, let alone like a single trans parent.
Are you happier?
I'm so much happier.
I
feel at peace.
Are you having thoughts of suicide still?
Absolutely not. That first moment of injecting my first dose at HRT, I never had those thoughts ever again.
What kind of job are you doing now?
Now I'm a TikTok live streamer.
That's your full-time gig?
Full time.
You like it?
I love it.
What do you love about it?
The freedom. Working for myself.
What did you do when TikTok got banned?
I crapped my pants. I needed some of those Depends you gave me after my surgery.
Well, how did you get to the point of saying, okay, I've done hormones, I've come out, now I'm going to permanently change my body?
So almost immediately after coming out, telling my immediate family and my kids, I flew to San Francisco. I was living outside of Phoenix. I flew to San Francisco in the morning and I got my eyebrows and my lips tattooed and got home shortly after my kids got home from school. So I was just there and back in a day. That was the first like permanent thing I did. Mm-hmm. But it gave me such a huge boost of confidence. Like something so simple, like the euphoria I felt from doing that was amazing. And so I immediately scheduled my breast augmentation after that. Mm-hmm. 12 months after HRT, I had a breast augmentation in Arizona. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Then you came back to Washington.
Yeah, it was really hard being in Arizona and being a single parent. I had no family. My mom had always helped so much with the kids, and I had none of that. And I was working like 12-hour days in this factory, and it was really hard. And my daughter had a hard time adjusting to the kids there. She was like a young teenager. So I made the decision to quit my job of 10 years and move back to Washington. And that's when I started full-time TikTok live streaming.
What did your mom think about the transition?
My mom felt like she was losing her child. It took her some time to grasp the situation. She felt like she was losing me. Little did she know she almost did like actually lose me. Once she realized that she wasn't losing her child, I changed my name. Mm-hmm. That was something that really affected her. The name she gave me, I got rid of. And she'll still like, I don't know, she said things about it like since then about me like changing my name and stuff.
What did she say?
I don't know, just like stuff to like, stuff that like makes me feel bad about it. And I kind of just like, whatever, Mom. Like, I don't know. just make like little snarky comments, I guess.
Then you started thinking about changing your body. And you did some research, is that right?
Yeah. Probably 6 months into HRT, I came across another trans person that had just had a breast augmentation. And I thought the doctor did amazing work. This was before I moved to Arizona, and he happened to be in Arizona. So I moved to Arizona, and I'm like, yes, it's going to work out perfect. So in my head, I already knew as soon as I hit 12 months, I wanted to get my breasts done. But you got to understand, I was like 36 at this point, and like by 36, I knew who I was. Like, as much as I tried to deny it and like try to convince myself that wasn't who I was, I deep down, like, I knew who I was. And the moment I started HRT, I was fully committed. Like, I didn't feel like I needed to go to therapy to try to understand these feelings. Like, I'd spent 36 years trying to fight against these feelings. Like, I trusted how I felt at that point.
Makes sense.
And starting HRT and the feeling of euphoria that gave me, like, I was all in.
How did you get into the TikTok live streaming?
I met another trans girl on Instagram, and we went to Vegas to kind of like celebrate me starting HRT and stuff. And she started live streaming from the hotel room, and like people like had noticed us out on the strip that were in like the live stream, and like she was getting these virtual gifts, and like I'm just like, what the heck? I had no idea this existed. I didn't even have TikTok on my phone at that point. I'm like, this is kind of cool. And so I downloaded TikTok, and I would start live streaming on the weekends. After I came out, I never went on TikTok before my transition. So I like came out, started presenting female, and also started broadcasting myself to the world at the same time. And I was just doing it for like fun. I would do it after work sometimes, or on the weekend I would live stream. And I started just like digging deeper into it and seeing the possibilities. By the time I was ready to quit my job, I knew I was going to go to Washington and do it full time.
That's awesome. How did you decide to come to me for surgery?
One of my viewers on TikTok.
Really?
I had been talking about wanting a BBL for a long time. And I was like looking in Miami, and I'm like, I'm going to go to Miami and get a BBL. And I'm like, damn, I got to fly home after that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's got to be someone closer to me. And we would talk about it in my live streams. And somebody said, look up Dr. Seattle, or Real Dr. Seattle, on one of my live streams. So I looked you up. And here we are.
And what made you want to come to me versus go to Miami?
I don't think it's necessary to travel that far if there's a doctor capable and skilled enough, like, around you. Like, why travel to Miami if I could find someone close to home, be more comfortable, like, following my surgery and stuff. And I started like looking you up. I found your TikTok. I started like going to your website, like trying to figure out costs in my head, and doing a lot of research. I read a lot of stuff about you. And then I got to the point where I was like, I think this guy really could be the one to do this for me. And so I made a consultation and started like looking at your results and your surgeries, and watching your surgeries on Snapchat and YouTube, and seeing your before and afters on Instagram. And I don't know, I just had a good feeling. So I wanted to meet you and have a consultation.
How was the consult?
The consult was good. I left feeling very confident. I scheduled my surgery that same day. I felt very confident, very excited. I felt like you knew what you were doing. You were honest. And you were going to give me the results that I desired.
So now we're almost 2 months out. We did a liposuction 360, where we removed the fat all around. And we didn't just remove it. I sculpted a feminine physique.
That you did.
Yeah, so we made the stomach flat. We made a waist. We scooped your back out so it goes into your buttock. And then I filled the buttock, created hips, gave you shape and projection. I didn't give you a diaper butt, but I gave you shape, form, and physique. What do you think about it?
Now I'm in love. I just stare at my body, like just in awe. Like it's how I could. It's how I've always like dreamed of looking, and I actually like look this way now, and it's just crazy. I'll just be like checking myself out in the mirror all the time. I'm obsessed with my body.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. You did an amazing job.
It's my privilege. You're such an amazing person. You've lived such an amazing life. Myriah, you've had an amazing journey. If there's one thing you could share with our viewers and listeners about what you've gone through, if there's one piece of advice you could give them, what would it be?
Believe in yourself. Trust your feelings, trust your heart. And just know however intimidating something may be, if you truly believe it, you truly feel it, you should absolutely chase those dreams, chase those aspirations, and do what you feel in your heart. Don't worry about what everybody else thinks about you.
Thanks for listening to the Plastic Surgeon Podcast, and please rate us and review us on Apple for more great content. For my live surgeries, you can watch me on Instagram or YouTube at Real Dr. Seattle. Thank you. Bam, what?